The Springboks have just announced their first squad for the year, their first alignment camp for 2026. Now, for people that don't know, these alignment camps, there's not actually the full squad that they select. There's going to be a lot of players here that play in the likes of Japan or overseas that don't get selected, but it's more based for the local players and for some inexperienced younger players to come into the system, get involved with the camp, get involved with the players, and for majority of the players to really understand what the plan is for the year and what the coaches do expect from the year, from the players, and maybe going over some structural things as part of the team. And it's just a lot goes into these alignment camps, but it's not really that much actual training base for the players. It's more meeting up. I think they meet up in Cape Town every year when they do this, every time they do it, and they just go over the plans, they go over the structures, they kind of go over what they expect from certain players. And it's very good for the young guys that aren't even capped yet to really experience that Springbok environment and kind of mingle with the other 100 cap Springbok players. I mean, if you have the likes of a Kai Pratt getting to learn some things from an oxen chair, imagine how far that can take him throughout his career. So we'll go through the squad now. It's a very exciting squad. There's 11 uncapped players, but there's some really good youngsters here. And honestly, some of these guys might get capped this year. So I will be doing a bit of a separate video on who I think can get capped that are uncapped players, but I'll be kind of going over it briefly in this video. But I mean, in the forwards, they've gone for Eben Etzebeth, Sia Khaleesi, Oxenchair, Kai Pratt, Emmanuel Chichuka, Vincent Chichuka, Johan Grobler, Cameron Hanekom, Elrich Low, Volkulo, Siposetu Mnebelele, Roan Norkia, Gerard Steenkamp, Marco van Staden, Kobus Wesse, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Paul de Villiers, Ben Jason Dixon, Nedling Fischer, Frans Mahaber comes back, Ntutoko Mchunu, Salman Murat, Riley Norton, Zachary Porton, Evan Roos, Batobele Tlekane, Asenate Tlabakania, and Ruan Venter. That's a very exciting group of forwards they have there. I mean, if you look at some of the young guys, some of the inexperienced guys, the likes of a Kai Pratt, Cameron Hanekom's only played one game for the Springboks. Siposetu Mnebelele, he is an incredible player right now, and I think he's going to go really far in the Springbok setup in the future. I think he's just got such a good attitude towards the game as well, so he's one I'm really excited to see, and I think he's going to be able to learn a lot from some of the other players around him. And if you look at the likes of a Paul de Villiers, still uncapped, but you'd think he is by now the way he's been playing. Jan-Hendrik Wessels is still a young player as well, but he's played quite a few times for the Springboks. Then you have Ntutoko Mchunu's back in the squad. He's been awesome for the Stormers. Riley Norton's had a very successful campaign with the under-20 Springboks, and he's going to be playing again this year. Zachary Porton played a few games last year, really impressed as well. Bato Tlekane, one of the most talked about loose forwards, and then Ruan Venter as well from the Lions. It's good to see some really good young Lions players as well, because if you look at Bato Tlekane and Ruan Venter, they are absolutely destroying people in the URC, and I think they're going to actually have, both of them might actually get some caps this year. It's going to be very interesting to see who they do pick and who they don't pick. Of course, it is kind of a year where the Springboks do need to get ready for the World Cup next year, but Rassie has said before that he does plan to give some inexperienced players some game time and maybe cap a few new youngsters. And I think from these forwards, I do think the likes of a Nebelele, Bato Tlekane, Paul de Villiers could look at maybe getting their first caps this year. I think maybe Riley Norton won't, just because he's still involved with the under-20s very much this year, but maybe he does down the line. I don't know, maybe this year a lot of these guys might get a few caps, or they'll just go on tour with the squad. It'll be very good for these youngsters to really get that big time experience with these 50 cap, 100 cap Springbok players around them. It's good to see Eben Etzebeth back. He's obviously had a bit of a break after what happened to him in the international game last year against Wales. If you look at the likes of Sia Khaleesi there, and this just makes me realize how many good Springbok players actually play in South Africa. There's a lot of good South African players that play in South Africa. Over the last few years, everybody says most of our best players play overseas, and that is true. I mean, a lot of our players play in Japan and in England, but if you look at this right now, a lot of the players are coming back. If you think the likes of a Thomas du Toit is coming back as well, a Bohan Venter is coming to the Lions next year, so it's very exciting times right now for the Springboks, and especially for the South African teams in the URC, and I mean, this just proves it. I mean, if you look at some of the youngsters in the URC, like Paul de Villiers, Elrich Low, still a youngster in the URC as well, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Ruan Venter, these guys are really lighting it up in the URC, and they're finally getting the credit they deserve. Now, looking at the backs, Andre Esterhuizen, Apelele Fasi, Jaden Hendrickse, his brother Jordan Hendrickse, Ethan Hooker, Makazole Mapimpi, Edward van der Merwe, Grant Williams, Jaco Williams, Curtly Orense, Sebastian de Klerk, Cheswa Uester, Kanan Moody, Andre Pollard, Sasha Ngomezulu, Marcus Miller, Kobus Reinach, Damien Willemse, Kieran Horn, Hashim Pied, and Morne van der Berg. That's a very exciting group of backline players, and they still don't even have the likes of a Dale Lindy, a Jesse Creel, Cheslin Colby, and that's still a very exciting group. Some of the uncapped players there, I mean, let me just go through it here. Yaku Williams, Sebastian de Klerk, Cheswell Euster, I mean, Marcus Miller, Hashim Peed, some really exciting uncapped youngsters. And I think out of this group, some guys that could honestly get capped this year, Yaku Williams maybe, but I'm thinking Cheswell Euster honestly might get a cap this year. I just feel like the way he's playing recently, the way his kind of styles transferred to to the highest level of club rugby, playing an international tournament, he's been really good at that level, and I think he could honestly be a bit of a game changer at international level if he gets an opportunity. I think Sebastian de Klerk as well. I can imagine him, if the Springboks ever were kind of experimenting with a few selections, him putting on the number 23 jersey and coming on as an outside centre / wing kind of a combination utility back. I think he could do really well there. And then Hashim Peed, of course, he's one of those guys I think definitely might get a cap this year, because yes, he hasn't played too much senior rugby now for the Lions, but he's getting a lot more caps, and he is impressing with the amount of game time he's getting as well. So a really exciting group here. And I mean, the first actual squad of the year for the Springboks, it just makes it so much more exciting, because if you think the huge year they have ahead, I mean, they're playing England at Ellis Park. They're playing Wales in South Africa this year. They're playing Scotland in South Africa this year. The first time in a while, I think the first time in my life, I'm seeing 3 different international teams touring to South Africa, the way South Africa tours to like the European teams at the end of the year. And I really love that this Nations Championship is happening this year, because it's going to be awesome just for South African rugby fans and for international fans alike. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And I think being able to play a likes of an England at home, then a Wales, then a Scotland, and then later in the year, you still have to go play in France, in Ireland. That's going to be epic, in Italy, and you still have the 3 games against the All Blacks. I think this year is going to be really exciting for the Springboks, but I also think it's going to be an opportunity for some guys to get some game time. I mean, if you look at that, like the Wales game this year, that could be a game. I don't think they'll ever make the mistake they made in previously, where they're going to completely change the whole team, but that could be a game where they kind of change a few players in, bring a few guys in, get them some game time. And what Rassie Erasmus and the coaching group from South Africa does very well is they kind of sprinkle the new guys in alongside the experienced guys. They don't just chuck a whole group in the deep end together. They kind of but like if you think of the Portugal game, I think it was 2 years ago. Yes, it was a very changed team, but they still had the likes of an Andre Estes, and they still had the likes of a Lucanio they still had the likes of a Ben Jason Dixon, and those guys coming in. So there was a lot of experienced guys amongst the guys like a Ruan Venter, Pepsi Buthelezi getting his debut and stuff like that. So and Andre Igu Venter as well. So there's the way that South Africa does it, they kind of funnel the younger guys in amongst the experienced guys, which really helps those guys so that they kind of get used to that level, but they also get used to winning at that level, and they get used to winning those little battles at that level as well. Because if you do chuck these guys into the deep end, more than likely, as a whole group together, more than likely, they probably won't come out on top at the start. Just more than likely they won't. It's kind of like what Wales are doing right now, where all their players were kind of thrown into the deep end together, and they kind of have to find a way to win games as a group that hasn't really done it before. But bringing in a guy like a Riley Norton and giving him some experience next to a guy like a Eben Etzebeth or a Ruan Norkia can just help him so much down the line. And if you think of a guy like Siposeto Nebelele, he can learn so much from the likes of a Johan Grobler or a Malcolm Marks down the line, or even a Jan Hendrik Wessels, who's a really good player right now. Then Batot Lekani can learn so much from a Sia Khaleesi or an Ulrich Lowe, or guys like that have been there and have done that, like a Marco van Staden. They can all learn so much from each other. And then you have guys like Paul de Villiers, Batot Lekani, Evan Roos, that are still young guys that can add a lot of energy to the squad, a lot of competition, a lot of competitiveness. And if you think of the back line, can you imagine a guy like Cheswell Euster learning from the likes of a Makazole Mapimpi or Edward van der Merwe or a Kurtley Orense or a Cheslin Colby down the line? These guys can learn so much from each other, and I think bringing a guy like Cheswell Euster in, he can honestly add a lot right now. So it's a lot to be excited about for the Springboks, and they've got a really exciting year ahead. It's going to be very interesting to see how they manage the squad, how they manage who gets caps, who gets first caps, who gets more experience this year, who's going to play the big games. Are they going to kind of change things up this year? Are they going to kind of target a few games this year to really play their full team? I'm sure the All Blacks games are going to be full strength teams this year, because those are kind of must win test matches, and that's what makes that tour so awesome. It's like a British and Irish Lions style tour, but between the All Blacks and South Africa, which is going to make it absolutely epic. And I think that'll be a full strength. If you look at the other teams, probably at England, a Scotland at home, maybe the Wales game, they'll target getting some guys capped or getting some inexperienced guys in there, which would be very good for those players, especially at home, probably the best environment to do it. If you look at later in the year, Italy is no joke either. They really gave us a challenge last year. Then Ireland and France. So there's a lot of games we're going to have to probably choose our strongest players. But if we don't, a lot of players will be able to kind of get good experience and show if they actually deserve to be there for next year's World Cup. Because this year is a big year for South Africa to kind of look ahead at the World Cup, kind of choose their best players, see who fits where, who makes good combinations. Like, for instance, is Ethan Hooker a better 13 in the Springbok environment now, or is he a better wing in the Springbok environment? Same for Kane and Moody. There's a lot of things they have to kind of figure out this year. But I will say, there's also some guys that have kind of lost out to this. I mean, no Bongi and Benambi, no Vincent Koch either, no Willie Leroux. Of course, Willie Leroux now, I was kind of expecting that, but no Vincent Koch. That could be due to form as well. His form has kind of dropped recently, and if you think the likes of Gerard Steenkamp and Jan-Hendrik Wessels have definitely overtaken him. Bongi and Benambi is a bit of a weird one, because recently for the Sharks, like, probably the last month or so, I kind of feel like he's picked up his game, but maybe they're just giving him a bit of a rest because he might still go to the next World Cup. I'm not sure. It kind of seems like he was kind of getting phased out the squad last year. So it's going to be very interesting what they do there, because Johan Grobler is good, but I just don't think South Africa has a true second option hooker right now. So Jan-Hendrik Wessels could also be an option, and that's also probably why they're bringing in a guy like Siposeto Nebelele, because at under 20 level, when he was still 18 or 19 years old, he still has to play under 20 this year, he was showing that he has what it takes to be a world-class hooker. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting to see how they manage a guy like him. But I mean, all in all, it's a very exciting squad. It's just an alignment camp, but I'm so excited. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's just that time of the year where the Springboks are nearly about to play. First game's in June against the Barbarians. I think it's June the 20th in Kaburka. That's going to be an awesome opening game. I do think they'll probably go for their strongest team that game, because a few weeks after is England, but that's going to be absolutely awesome. But if you guys do enjoy the content, you do enjoy all the international rugby content, the Six Nations, the Nations Championship, the Springbok content, the URC content, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.